I understand you'd like me to hear your confession?
Yes, I would. Not exactly a confession. I haven't yet done the deed.
I'm here for you, Mark.
Is it possible for me to know a woman in the biblical sense?
Are we talking about sexual intercourse?
I think so.
Outside marriage?
My penis speaks to me, Father Brendan. This therapist suggested I could work with a sex surrogate who would be sensitive to my unusual needs.
In my heart, I feel like he'll give you a free pass on this one. Go for it.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, it's good.
Hi, Mark O'Brien.
Your money's on the desk over there.
Yes, it is.
That was the wrong way to start off.
It really was. Shall we start again?
Please, you start.
I'm not a prostitute. You don't have to pay me up front. And there's a limit to the number of sessions we can have. The limit is 6. Shall we get undressed?
Sure.
First session, he was extremely nervous.
Let's forget about it.
Mark, do you want to see this woman or not?
No.
Well, it's too late.
What floor?
18th floor.
What kind of therapist is she?
She's a sex therapist. Today they're working on simultaneous orgasm.
What's that?
You're gonna start to listen to signals from your body. That way you'll be able to have some control. when you
Oh,
feel-
God.
I understand even among non-believers, the most common expression of sexual ecstasy is, oh God.
Picture yourself as a 6-year-old boy. Do you blame him for getting polio?
What is she like, Cheryl?
She's the most wonderful person I've...
Conference for the sessions. Just a few points before we begin. No flash photography during the press conference, but as the talent enters the room, you feel free to take photographs from your seats, but once the press conference starts, only the 6 accredited photo agencies are allowed to take photos. Our volunteers with mics will be moving around for questions, so please feel free to ask questions, and when you do, remember to identify yourself and your media outlet. Everyone make sure your cell phones are off, and the press conference is streamed live at tiff.net. Our moderator for this session is Johanna Schneller, and it's now my pleasure to welcome the director, producer, and cast of the film, The Sessions. Thanks very much.
No, it's good.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to the TIFF press conference for the sessions. A lot of people talk about incredible true stories, but what I love about this movie is that it's sort of an entirely credible true story, and I think all the more beautiful for that. To my left is the writer-director, Ben Levin. John Hawkes, to his left, plays Mark O'Brien, who was paralyzed by childhood polio. Helen Hunt plays Cheryl, his therapist. William H. Macy is Father Brendan, his priest. And Judy Levine is the producer of the film. So I'm going to just ask everybody a question to start, and then we'll throw it open to everybody else. Ben, what was your, and Judy too, I'm curious to know what your pitch was for this movie. Okay, there's a guy, and he's lying down, and, how was it, what did you say, and how was it received?
Well, usually there's a sort of a quite dynamic change in people's facial expression. You start off with there's a guy in an iron lung, and then you say, and then he wants to lose his virginity, and he hires a sex surrogate, and so that's the way the pitch sort of evolves. It starts sort of kind of, anyway.
We never get tired of that old story.
And John, can you tell us a little bit about how it came to you?
After the film Winter's Bone came out, I was in the unusual position for me of having scripts sent to the house for consideration, and this was the best one. Yeah, just found it. I met with Ben, and we chatted and got along, and we proceeded forth.
And Helen, this must have been, a little bit hard in the mouth, reading some of the things in the script. It's a role that sort of requires everything, or you can't possibly do it. So what was your reaction to it?
I just thought it was a beautiful story, and there are almost none. It's hard to write a good movie. And so I said yes before doing a lot of thinking about, what would be challenging, or I just wanted to do it. I knew John was going to do it. I knew they were hoping to get Bill, and so I certainly felt that I was going to be, working with world-class people. So a good story and wonderful actors and a nice conversation with Ben.
Okay, has anybody got a question out there?
Just have Bill Macy down here, who I know
Oh,
that
yeah.
you were
Oh,
about
Bill.
to let speak.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Bill.
My client has something to say.
Your character just kind of radiates empathy. He's sort of the guy who has to be, I think, our eyes and ears into this story. He's kind of listening to it and processing it as we are. Was there a particular thing that drew you to this part?
I've never been accused of radiating empathy before in my entire career. It's a lovely script. Two of my favorite subjects, too, disabilities and sex. And if there's anything that's got the ability to make America squeamish, those two things are. Did that answer the question? I don't think so, did it?
No, I think it did. Yeah.
I've always wanted Bill to play a rabbi, but this was about as close as we could get.
Hi, Fabian Weinthal for Latin America. I have a question for Helen. Your character seems to be pretty comfortable without their clothes. So I was wondering how difficult, how comfortable it was to shoot those scenes.
I might take my clothes off right here. It's entirely possible. It's not just this movie. That's why they picked me. It's not nothing to, take your clothes off in front of a room of people you don't know, but I think my desire to bring the story to life outweighed my fear about that. I also remember saying to my friend, as I was thinking about doing it, I was describing how beautiful the story was, and I used this phrase, like, it's getting late. Maybe I just feel like I'm getting older, like, whatever, I'm going to be naked. It just, it didn't seem as big a deal as the chance to be part of a movie about being human, which I feel like the movie really is. I also am although I'm drowning in gadgets like all of us, I'm really sick of them. And I feel like this movie is almost the anti-digital age movie, you know? It's really about that, which was very moving and like a healing thought for me, to be part of a movie that was simply about touching each other.
Could you say, because in the movie, maybe people who don't see it yet, they don't know the difference between what is a prostitute and what is a sex surrogate? Could you tell that?
Well, I say it much more eloquently in the movie, but what do I do? I just read a line from the movie. What is the difference? Ben is the guy.
About $60, I think.
I think you
I
put,
know. I have one good thing I remember
Yes.
hearing is that a prostitute hopes for return business, and a sex surrogate hopes to send you on your way with an ability to have a sexual life.
Yes. There's an expiration date, the movie says, on sex surrogacy. Yeah. Judy, you're the producer of the film, and we just touched a little bit on the kind of, reaction that. How was the sort of pitching of it for you, and what was some of the reactions that you got? What did people say when you described this story to them?
First of all, it was very hard to get anybody to read it because it wasn't a subject that you could draw them into, and no amount of trying to explain that this was an upbeat movie and that they would walk away feeling really happy about it was going to convince them that they could read something about a bloke in an iron lung who wanted to lose his virginity. So that made it tough, but then, I would try to encourage people to read just the first 10 pages. If you like the first 10 pages, then maybe you'll read the next 10 pages and get drawn into it. And when it came to looking for money, in the end, we did not go down a conventional road because that wasn't working for us after we'd tried that. And fortunately, the first person who came on board was in fact with Ben when he met the real Cheryl Cohen Green, and he was so taken by her and the subject material that he came in, and once we had that opportunity to say, well, we've already got at least the very first piece of the pie, that helped to move things along. So that's how I would start. We'd say, well, we've got some money, so we're looking for some more. And of course then once we had the cast, by which point we really had the money to make the film, but we were always looking for more, then that was an enormous bonus for us. I mean, we just were so blessed to have this incredible team with us that made everything so much smoother.
Helen, did you get to meet Cheryl?
I did. I've played real people in movies before, and I've had the experience of building a whole character, and then they come on the set, and you go, it's too late. I can't. I don't know what to do with you now. I've got a whole other person I've made. But I spoke to her very early, and she used a term about somebody she was talking about. She said sex positive. This person, she's so sex positive. And I loved that would be a thing that a person could be, I sort of thought that was my job. Could I embody that? That would be great, and I liked that she was louder than you thought, and there was, I think a lot of, when I read the movie, you think, what is this? Is it a hooker? What is it? What's going to walk through the door? And so hooker, you imagine, male fantasy, you imagine. I don't think you imagine a kind of loud, frank person that slightly makes you do this, and I liked that. I liked the idea of starting there, given that the movie really is, we are John in the movie, and so it seemed good if the first moment he meets this person, she's not maybe even what he hoped, not the easiest person to walk down this journey with. At least at the beginning.
What is sex positive? What did she mean?
She meant a positive feeling about sex. In many movies and even in life, I don't know, it's like in movies the lights are low and the underwear drops and the hands clench and there's all this weirdness and shame and hiding and then there's this movie, which is, I think, sort of like what happens if all of that is gone. Ben can speak about it better than me, but I think she meant embodying a positive feeling about sex.
There's a question?
Hello. Hi, this is Elaine from Brazil. A question for Helen.
Because I'm naked is why I'm getting all these questions, just to be totally clear. Let's none of us kid ourselves. Everybody
naked
been,
too.
if you were a little more naked, he's becoming you.
It's all right. I'm imagining everybody in the room with their clothes off anyway.
Yes.
Your performance has earned Oscar buzz since Sundance. So is that possible not to think about that now, especially
Well, not
now
at this
because
moment
of
with
the
you saying it.
No, because of the award season's coming up.
Yeah.
So
Since it's something none of us can do anything about, I think we are all focused on hoping, I feel maybe more than any movie I've ever been in, a hope that people will see this in a theater. The experience of seeing this movie with a group of people, because of the two of them and what he wrote, everyone is rolling with laughter, and then we become him, and then we're terrified that this woman will come in and be naked, rather than being interested in seeing an actress we know, you know what I mean? And because of what the three of them did, we're so invested that when we saw it all together with 1,500 people, it felt like everybody was naked. Everybody was that vulnerable in the audience. So I think all of us, instead of being focused on that, are just hoping that people will go together and see it. I'm speaking for everyone. But there you go.
Question in the back, and then Bruce, you're next.
Hello, my name is Ernesto Garrat from Chile. Congratulations for the movie. I have a question for John. How difficult was the acting, because your body didn't move in all movie? Just basically your performance is based in your voice. How difficult was that?
Well, as an actor who often misses his mark, it was easier in that way. I was always in my spot. DP was never angry with me because I was always right there. I tried not to think of it in terms of 90 degrees of head movement. I tried to approach it like you would any acting role, which is, what am I trying to accomplish? What is the story? How can I help best tell the story in a given moment? So, and echoing Helen, lucky enough to be surrounded by really, really terrific people, and just played the scene as though I were a normal, able-bodied, upright person.
I think that the character of Mark had a very athletic mind.
There you go.
I remember when I first met Mark's girlfriend, the woman who was with his companion in the last years of his life. She said to me, Mark did to his mind what Arnold Schwarzenegger did to his body.
Ah, beautiful. That was Susan Fernbach?
That was Susan, yeah.
Another question, please, for Ben, for the director. The same person, hola. I just want to ask you if you can give me a little details about the sense of humor of the movie, because it's very important, that sense of humor, for understand the story also, I think. Can you share about that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I think in order for me to make a connection with the character, I had to feel that there was a common sense of humor between us. I think that the tone of the movie, I hope, is established when you first hear Mark's thoughts. The very first thing he says in his thoughts is when this cat brushes his face and he can't actually scratch himself, he says, "Scratch with your mind." And it's supposed to give you an insight into a guy who essentially sees life's absurdity, and really that is his trademark. And I think it wasn't a matter of trying to plant humor onto the film, but to understand just his processes. And I felt that he did have an absurdist view of life.
Bruce?
Good morning, Bruce Kirkland, Toronto Sun. I'd like to loop this back to something that intrigued me with a couple of the answers, including from Helen and, of course, William, and that was that this is a sex-positive movie, but it comes out, especially in our neighbors to the south, where you're from, in a sex-negative climate in terms of how movies are perceived. In other words, sex is dirty. And I don't think everyone feels that way, but there is a climate surrounding the reception of films in that regard. So, William, you used the word squeamish, and you were being cheeky, but obviously also getting to the point. And I would be curious for anyone to answer this, but start with you because you raised that issue about a squeamish America.
I think we got, this is R-rated,
Yes.
and Batman is PG-13. I don't know a more polite way to say it, but I think the ratings board needs therapy. And I'm not joking. It's violence is ugly, and it's always ugly. Sex is good. Even the bad sex I've had was pretty good.
Helen, do you have any thoughts on that? Because the whole sex positive negative thing, but in
Yeah,
the context of receiving film.
I was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and I'm her daughter's godmother. Her daughter's 16 years old, and she was asking me if I thought she should watch this particular TV show that's on now that has a lot to do with sex and women's sexuality, and it has a pretty dark look at it. And I said she should see this movie. 16-year-old people, I think, should see this movie. And Ben actually said that to me early on. I would like my daughter to see this movie. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if one of the many images that came in was a version of sex where you can say, I want that, I don't want that, I feel this way, ooh, I'm not sure, I might want to stop. Yes, I would like to actually communicate who you are. That's, I guess, all I have to say.
I think one of the things that the character of Cheryl teaches is the sort of things that everyone wanted to know when they were fumbling around in their first efforts. You know, what bit goes where, I think that you know, one of the fascinations about the character and the relationship is this kind of incredible innocence. That there is no inhibition in naming the bits and describing what they do, and a lot of the movie is kind of instructional.
Mm-hmm. Until she says stop reading the manuals, which just get in the way.
You know, every movie, actors have to establish trust with one another and with the director, but it seems that this one is particularly crucial for especially you two to trust each other in those scenes and to trust you. Can you talk a little bit, the three of you, how you fomented that?
Well, I think that one of the crucial elements that isn't really appreciated is that the film set actually revolves around the director of photography. And he's the one who really is closest to the actors. And in this case, we had a superb director of photography who really understood the sensitivity of every shot and the vulnerability of the actors. And I think that gave us an incredible head start to overcome what could have been uncomfortable. And I never sensed any discomfort during the shooting. I mean, we just went into every day with enthusiasm and without fear. And I think to some extent that was to the credit of our DP who set the standard.
John, can you elaborate a little on what you and Helen might have done together, or?
Sure. You know, it's a leap of faith every time, really, when you do a film, but this one more so. I guess, but again, it didn't feel dirty or odd. It was unusual to be lying immobile with a beautiful naked woman, but it was not a bad thing by any means. And just from speaking with Helen. Although Helen and I didn't spend a great deal of time talking about our characters, we worked with Ben a fair amount before we started, just to do what you always do, which is analyze a scene and figure out what needs to be done. But I had a great deal of trust that I was in good hands, so to speak. Yeah.
I think there also was a certain electricity in the fact that John and Helen didn't know each other, hadn't worked together, and there was at least it was visible to me, a level of reality about the anxiety in their first encounter, which is really a very crucial part of the story. It's an interesting casting lesson for me that you can often get the most unexpected and intimate results out of total strangers.
Did you film that part of it chronologically? So their first meeting was their first?
Yes, we did. We filmed all the intimate scenes in story order.
Question?
Yes, Fabian Weinthal again. A question for Helen. Going back to the Oscar buzz, you with Liza Minnelli.
I have what?
You with Liza Minnelli are the only actress who
Me and Liza
won
Minnelli.
the Golden Globe,
Yes.
the Emmy,
Yes.
and the Oscar the same calendar
Yes.
year. So how do you remember those days?
What do I say? Me and Liza are always lumped together. Often confused. I don't know.
Never
It
see
was
him in the same
great. I was tired. It was fun. You know, it's what you think. It's sort of a Cinderella moment with all sorts of weirdness around it, because no Cinderella moment happens without a lot of, you know, the other side. So, it was very exciting, certainly for any actor, you know. And I didn't go to my high school prom, so the whole dressing up thing was nice. It was great.
So would it be a dream to get it again?
Sure. Do you have one? Then the next few months could be over. If you don't, I'll talk to you later.
There's a question coming in front row, but while we wait for the mic, I'll just ask you, he's such a good-natured guy, Mark. He seems so undefeated by anything, and based on the real footage that you also show in the movie, it seems very much part of his character. Were you at all concerned that, I don't even know how to phrase this, he didn't suffer enough, or he didn't seem more angsty, or talk a little bit about that choice?
I really took my cue from his poetry, and there's no question that there were some awful moments in his life, but this film was about a particular episode in his life, and probably even in his recollection, one of the most positive and joyous episodes in his life, although it had its melancholy moments. I mean, with the discovery of love is always pain as well, and I don't think we try and hide that. But I hope that in the result it really has the rhythm of one of his poems, rather than it's not intended as a kind of gritty documentary. It's intended as a kind of love song.
Question?
Hi, good morning. Jennifer Pagliaro, Toronto Star. A question for John. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about getting into this role, some of the research that you did. And I understand, even though you were immobile for most of the movie, it was physically challenging. If you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. There were so many wonderful tools at my disposal. Ben's amazing script, Ben himself to answer questions about polio that I had, Jessica Yu's amazing film documentary short called Breathing Lessons, based on Mark's life, Mark's poetry, Mark's writing. And then in preparation just to learn to be still, to lose all movement, neck down, and to work a mouth stick to turn pages of a book. And so there were many different things to do. It's mentioned in the script that Mark hasn't seen his penis in 30 years. Helen's character, Cheryl, speaks also to the fact that his spine is terribly curved. So, along with props department, developed a foam soccer-sized ball to lay underneath my back, which was to approximate the spine curve, which was painful, but I could get up and stretch out and walk away, and a tiny bit of pain compared to what many people feel constantly throughout their lives. So not a big deal, but I was lucky to have so many different tools to choose from.
I must tell you that the first time John was in character, and the people who knew Mark O'Brien saw him, namely Susan Fernbach and the real Cheryl, it was a very freaky moment for them, and I could see how deeply moved they were in a totally unexpected way, that here they were seeing, Mark O'Brien reborn, so it was no mean feat.
Can I say one thing? That
Yeah.
the movie, because of the sex is always interesting or whatever, we're focusing on that, but I also feel that the wrestling with faith in this movie I haven't seen that in a movie either, like the kind of honest wrestling with how faith and sex meet. It's so absurd to think they won't meet, so of course they crash into each other in all these horrible ways because everybody's trying to pretend that, because no one knows how to reconcile them, and so in all of the scenes that the two of them have, I've never heard those conversations before. That's it.
Questions out there? Anybody? Okay.
Helen, you were so famous already when you did Mad About You.
When I did what?
When you did the comedy series.
Yes.
So I was wondering, why did you decide to go from comedy to drama in movies?
Actors rarely decide much at all. So when I got offered, I read that script, and were you talking about, I did As Good as It Gets after that. So I read that movie, which was funny but also dramatic. He was one of my favorite filmmakers at the time. He didn't really want me. So I busted in the door, riding on the fumes of like whatever movie, Twister, something. Just give me a chance. I was too young and not right, and I auditioned and auditioned and auditioned, and pummeled him into hiring me. So it wasn't a conscious choice. It's just, I bet I can, well, certainly, I know you have this experience that whether you're on the stage, on film, or on television, it doesn't really matter in terms of the feeling of getting to work with words that you love and with actors that you respect. Like Bill's series stands up against any movie I've ever seen, you know what I mean? So I didn't choose any of it. I found a good story and worked as hard as I could to be invited to be part of it.
So that means that it might be possible for you to come back to comedy?
Yeah, I would love that. I think this movie's pretty funny also.
Questions? Anybody? We touched on this a little bit, but I wonder if we can elaborate a little more, and anyone can jump in on this. Movie sex is so fraught. Like it has to be perfect all the time. It has to look perfect all the time. It presumes that only certain very young, very attractive people get to have sex.
What are you saying?
What are you saying? No, I am saying that.
You be old so I can be unattractive.
Did you? No. I'm saying, are you as tired of that as I am, and are you as happy to see a movie that puts the lie to that? And not that, all I mean is the sense of fumbling and the sense of it not automatically going smoothly toward orgasm every second of the event. Just that there was a more human element to this. Can we talk just a little bit about, just because you all are in the movie business, what movies are saying and what reality is, and where they can wiggle around in there? Do you want to start?
Boy, thank you.
I'll start.
Okay.
I think that one of the reasons this film reaches so many people is because there's a kind of visceral reaction that we all have, that we've all been there. As Ben was sort of saying earlier, we've all been in that awkward situation of wondering whether you can look when somebody is taking off their clothes for the first time, and every other film you see tends to somehow, this film is not salacious, and it doesn't objectify. So you're not sort of watching them doing something you can't associate with. And here you're watching people, and it seems to reach everybody. I mean, kids who have seen it. Of course, nobody under 18 has seen it, but people, kids who have seen it from more or less teenage years on, all the way through to people who are, in their 80s, seem to respond extremely well to it because it tells this honest situation that we've all been in, and nothing else seems to quite do that out there. And I don't know if that quite addresses what you're after, but I'm trying to think of other films that. There are other coming-of-age films, but they've still always felt they have to put that sort of, the Vaseline on the lens almost, to not, they were afraid to go where we've gone with this film in terms of honesty about the way we all feel about our own bodies, regardless of whether or not we're, physically disabled. We've all got our own inhibitions. We've all got our own fears of whether or not we're going to be accepted by the person we're trying to attract to us or that we're attracted to. It's, that's a problem. Maybe this film will sort of break that barrier a bit, and other filmmakers and storytellers will feel confident doing that. I'd like my kids to see this, their friends to see this. I'd like them to, when we were talking before, I think that I almost wondered whether all the next generation would benefit from sex surrogates. We should have this whole new thing going on where they could all have this wonderful way to learn about sex before they have to go in and do it with somebody they really care about.
Excellent. Does anybody else want to jump in on that, or we have time for probably one or two last questions. Anybody else out there? Yes?
Hi again, from Chile. I'd like to ask a question about the possible controversy of the movie. I come from Latin America. We are so conservative there. And what are your expectations in these terms? I mean, I saw the movie. It's beautiful. It's very positive sex. But what are your expectations in terms of the reactions in countries or places very conservative? Thank you.
I think that my personal opinion is that in most of the countries where sex is behind closed doors, it's going on a lot. And that a lot more people will, I think all the young people will be sneaking in to see this movie, that they won't be telling their parents, they'll drive from the small town they're in to some other small town to watch it in a movie where maybe they won't bump into their friends. I'm hoping that they will spread the word quietly and that it will give them an opportunity to be honest about it, and if anything, I think the whole sort of the Catholic religious element that comes in with it might be enough to draw people in to find out what that's all about, especially when they see the trailers with Bill and his wonderful humour that he brings to it, the subtlety, and we've yet to see, but I'm hoping they'll all go. It'd be great for us if everybody goes.
It wasn't the original intention of the movie to change attitudes, but it would be a great bonus if that seemed to be the result in certain areas. I actually believe that it is possible, and those people who have seen it so far have pretty much asked the same kind of question as you have. I wonder if this is going to change people's minds at all. I mean, personally, I think sex education belongs back on the streets. But I think that to offer up something which isn't a typical male fantasy, I think is different, and maybe that's the way that it'll affect people, that if we approach sex in a kind of more matter-of-fact way and don't beat about the bush, then it becomes a more acceptable subject. I mean, it's really an area I don't know about. I didn't go into this, wanting to change the world. But
yeah, he doesn't know anything about sex. It's really
you can see who has the last word on these subjects.
He learned everything from me.
Yeah. And I think that's a good note to say thank you all so much for coming. Thank you very much for being here.